Hi, in this video we are going to see how to install Runtime Fabric in Anypine platform. So in Anypine platform we have many deployment options where you can deploy into Cloud Hub and other option, and mainly here we are going to see how to install in Runtime Fabric. It will not be a demo, so it will be a more of an instruction how we can install this particular deployment, or how we can set up this environment first and then how to deploy that application into Runtime Fabric. That is what we are going to see in this particular lecture. So for that, what we need to do is, as this is the initial setup, so you have to log in into Anypine platform, and in some organization you will have many business group, and you have to choose which business group you wanted to install this RTF. RTF is nothing but Runtime Fabric, and once you select the business group, you go to Runtime Manager. So once you go to this option, this particular page will get open, and there you just click Runtime Fabrics from the left side navigation. And once you do that, you have a box here or button here to create a Runtime Fabric environment. So once you click that particular button, so you will land into this particular page. Here you have to fill the Runtime Fabric name. For example, you are setting up the environment for production, then you can give RTF production. So this is your naming only. And similarly, if you wanted to create some non-production or pre-production, so that you can name it accordingly. And then as this particular installation, it's going to be in some Kubernetes stack where we will install our application. So here, in order to do this setup, we are going to choose some VM, and we are going to get some VM, and in that VMs we are going to create this Runtime Fabric environment. So that is the reason I'm just selecting the VMs where we will install the RTF image, where it will have the Kubernetes service, and finally we will use those parts to deploy our application. So you will select this VM option and click next, and once you do next, you will land into this particular page where it will show ownership as owned. So you can also see this video to see the instruction of the installation, and then you have to click this download files, which will download some setup related files, which we will see it in the next screen. And then you have to copy this activation data at the bottom of the page. Once you create the RTF Runtime Fabric environment, it will show some activation data, and also this status will show as ready for activation. So mainly what we have done, so we are creating a Runtime Fabric environment, and we are giving a name, and once you give a name and click select the VM option, and you select next page, and then this is the page up here where you can see the activation data. So you have to copy this activation data somewhere in the notepad, because this one we will use it for our installation. And also we are going to download this file, which will have some setup related shell scripts. I'll move on to the next slide. And what you have done is, once from that particular page, I'll just go back. So you just click the back button, then you land into the main page where we had the create Runtime Fabric option. So as we have created one environment now, one RTF cluster for the production environment now, it will show the ready for activation, and also it will show the Runtime Fabric environment version as well. So once that is done, right, so now what we have done is we just registered our Runtime Fabric environment from Anypine platform. So we had to install the Runtime Fabric environment. So just we register that environment from the Anypine platform. So now we have just clicked once you click the download files, right, and you will be able to see this particular scripts zip file will get downloaded, where we'll have many folders like AWS, Azure, manual, and scripts. In manual you have some file called generate config, which we will use it as part of our installation. And also if you go to the scripts, it is having some init.sh, that is also we will be using it for our installation. So these are the main two files which we are going to install it in our particular installation. So mainly this generate config will help you to create the required configuration for your installation. And this init.sh is nothing but once you execute this script, it will install the Runtime Fabric environment in your VM. So now this file is in our local where we have downloaded it. So now what you have to do is, if you need to install the runtime fabric environment, you need to choose how many controller node you need to have, how many worker node we need to have. So in this worker node only our application will get deployed. And for this particular installation instruction, I'm just selecting 3 VMs for controller and 3 VMs for worker. So in the controller node, you need to have some file system, which we will call it as VDC, with some Docker file system. We need it for 150 GB and some VDB file system for 100 GB. So this is the allocation required. So if you need it more, so you can install more as well. And in worker node, we don't need VDB. So mainly we need the Docker related file system, which is a VDC, where we are trying to procure 150 GB there. And then whatever before the installation prerequisite, we also need to keep our SE Linux disabled in all VMs. So there is a certain command which you need to run and see. You have to disable that particular SE Linux option in your VMs. So this one you can request in your infra team, so that they can prepare your VM with these setups, file system, and also this SE Linux disabled, and then they can hand over to you. Once that is done, you just log in into your VM server, where you need to install the runtime fabric, and you just check the file system, and you just see VDB and VDC is allocated to the specific disk location or disk spaces. And after that, what you do, and here I have used some user to log in into my runtime fabric environment, which is a VM where we are going to install the runtime fabric environment. So I just logged in with the mule user, and once you logged in, so now the file system is empty. Go to this directory opt anypoint and runtime fabric. So this directory will not be there. So first time you have to create the directory using a mkdir option. You have to create this directory, and after that, so as I mentioned earlier in the above, so you need to identify how many workers and how many controllers you need it. And then once you have that VM and controller and worker VMs, you just log into that server. So when you do this one, you do one by one, and assume you have a controller node first. Always you start with controller node, and out of 3 controller node, you need to choose which will be your leader controller node. So that is where we will install our ops center. And also you always start with your installation first with your leader node. And so in order to copy your setup files, you just create some temporary folder called setup, or you can name it anything, and there we have to copy our generate config file and also init file, which we have downloaded to our local, right? So that you try to copy it to this particular folder. Once that is done, so we are going to modify this generate config.sh, which will have lot of configuration like this, like RTF controller IP, RTF worker IP. So likewise, we have many configuration which we need to fill it. So here I have just given an instruction. What is this controller IP? So for example, I have mentioned here as a CIP1, controller IP1, controller IP2, controller IP3. So here you have to fill it with your actual IP address. Assume you have 3 VMs and each VM will have separate IP address. That you have to fill it with separator as space. And similarly, worker IP, that is where we will install our application. That is also you have to give it with space. So those 3 IP we are filling it. So here my environment, I'm choosing 3 workers and 3 controllers. That is why I'm giving those many IPs. And if you have more, then you have to give that in this particular configuration. And this RTF activation data, this is nothing but which we have copied from our Anypoint platform under the business group. When we register the runtime fabric, we have copied some activation data that you have to paste it here. And in your environment, if you have any outgoing connection which has to go through some proxy server, that proxy server you can fill it here. And then you have to give a where the Docker device location. So you can give the where is VDC is located, that particular path, and that VDB path where etcd device is there. So these two are file system which mainly we procured Docker for 150 and etcd device for 100 GB. And then Mule license, this you will get it from your Mule account team. And then you have pod, network CIDR and service CIDR. So this also you'll be getting it from your infra team, so that whenever you install any application in your Kubernetes service under this RTF installation, it will allocate one IP from this particular IP range. So now once you modify this configuration in the generate config.sh, you just save it, and then we are going to execute the shell script. So you change the file permission so that it can be a executable, and then you execute the generate config.sh. So what will happen now, as we have given 6 IP address now here, it will create 6 different configuration and it will display it in the console. So now we have to copy that entries. So for example, one entry, right? So I have just copied here, which generated from that particular generate config. This one nothing but here you will have actual IP. So here if you have a CIP1, which is your controller IP. So I'll go to the previous page. If you give controller IP 1, 2, 3, you are giving a 3 IP address. Whatever you are giving first IP address, that will be considered as a leader node. That is where it will install the op center. So this is the configuration which it's created from the generated config for the leader node. So that is why you have a install role as leader. Otherwise you will have something called joiner, worker node. So those kind of information, it will be filled in the node role and install role. So that is the reason we have to copy the command which generated from the generate config, and based on the IP you have to take one set. So for me this is the set for my controller IP1. So what I need to do, I have to log in into, so first I log in into this particular controller IP node of 1, which is nothing but my leader node. There I'll create a directory opt anypoint runtime fabric. Under env, this particular entry will get created. So you will run this command so that this particular entry will get created under the file called env. And this is for a leader node. Similarly, you have to copy the similar content, because as we have given a 6 IP, 6 config entries like this will be created with the cat command. So you have to copy each and everything, and you have to execute this particular cat command in the appropriate nodes. For example, if you have a leader here and controller node, so we are doing it in the leader node. Similarly, if you have a joiner here and controller node, you will be doing that in another controller IP which is coming in this particular IP address. So you will be able to see this IP address in your config file as well, which got generated. And now for a verification, right, just to see this command is getting executed properly, you can check it in this particular folder. You will be able to see the env file got created. And first what you do is you run this in leader node of controller, then you execute individually in another 2 controller node. Once controller node is complete, you start with the worker nodes. So worker node 1, 2, 3, so all the nodes you execute it. So then this config file is created in the file system of runtime fabric. So now so far we have not installed it, okay, we just created the configuration which is required for this particular installation. So now I'll move on to the next page. So this is nothing but init.sh. We initially copied into this particular folder. Now we are going to run this init.sh. This is the one, it's going to refer your configuration, and based on that it's going to install the runtime fabric environment. So what we have to do, so we have to change the file permission to executable, then you can run the script. So once you run the script, first similarly here also you have to start with your leader controller node first, and then you have to go ahead with the other controller nodes, then you have to do a worker nodes. Now I assume I'm doing this one in my leader controller node. So once that is done, right, once you execute this init.sh, you'll be able to see it in a console. It will execute many steps, so you have to clearly watch is there any specific error is coming which is blocking this particular installation. And once this particular installation is complete, you will get the logs in the window. And also if you wanted to see the logs from other window or other terminal, you can check it from this var.log rtf init log. So this is a particular file, it will store your installation log, and this is how it will look like. Okay, so this is the log of your installation status. So it will have 18 steps. and you'll be able to see the license file is getting updated, connectivity is getting updated. So before this it will create in 12th step it will create App Center credentials. Similarly it will do a entire installation, and then finally it will say Runtime Fabric installation is complete. So this is for only one node. Okay, so we have executed only in the leader node first. Similarly now you have to continue the other two leader node where you have to run the init script, and then you have to come to worker node and individually you have to execute this init script in all the three nodes, so one after another. So this is how it will look for your worker node installation log. So when you do it for controller node you have more steps, but when you do it for worker node it will be only 12 steps. So up to 12 you will have all the done and success, then it will say Runtime Fabric installation is complete. So now with this we have installed the Runtime Fabric environment in our VMs. Now what we need to do is, if you go back to your Anypoint platform, earlier what it was showing is, it was showing here as a status as ready for activation. So now once you log in and go to your Runtime Fabric environment, it will show as active, and it will show healthy, and this and all the parameters, right, all the tabs it will show healthy. And mainly you have to look this one, controller it will show 3 nodes, worker will show 3 nodes, because we have executed those many commands or installation in those nodes. So whenever you have installed it and you come back and see, assume you have only installed in the leader node, then it will come as 1 nodes in the controller, worker will be 0 nodes. Once you complete all the installation, it will show 3 nodes here and 3 nodes here, because I am doing it for only 3 nodes as a controller and 3 for controller and 3 for worker. And if you do it for more, so those many number it will come here. And if you see these tabs, health details, it should show healthy, associated environment. So that is a place we will select the environment. For example, this particular environment or this particular RTF which I have registered, I am going to use it for production. Then I will select my production environment. Assume you have a development SIT or QA and prod, so you have to select the production environment. And then inbound traffic, if you wanted to allow inbound traffic with HTTPS, so you will select this option, and then you will select the protocol, and you wanted to select as more secured one, so you will select the HTTPS, and then you can click add certificate. There you can upload your certificate details as well, so that this particular communication will be secured. So this is the configuration at your Runtime Fabric, which should show active after our installation. So now the installation is complete and the required configuration at Runtime Fabric or Anypoint platform is also complete. So now if you need to take your App Center credential, then what you need to do is you have to log in into your leader controller node and you have to run this command. So this is generated out of your 12th step in the initiate log or installation log. So when you run cat with this grub command, right, you will be able to see your this particular username and also password. And this is the URL for admin center, which will be your leader controller node IP, and then 32009 as a port and web login. So once you do that, you'll be able to see this page, and then you have to give a password which is generator or which is available from this particular command. And once you click login, so whatever this UI, it's not a Anypoint platform UI, it is a Runtime Fabric App Center UI. And you give a password and login, and you will come to this main home page, okay, where it will show your runtime. If all your controller and workers are running healthy, then it will show is healthy, and then it will show the installed version detail, and also you have many options like server, operation and other stuff. So when you click server, it will show your IP. For example, if you have installed in some 10.ip, so those kind of IP it will show here. And here there are 6 IPs and which I have hidden as well. And here it will show which one is a controller and which one is your worker IP. And I'll move on to the next one. If you click monitoring, it will show individual IP, what is the CPU usage, what is the memory usage. So those kind of monitoring we can see it from this particular page. And then Kubernetes, that is the main one. That is where you can see the list of application deployed. So once you click this page, it will show the node page where it will show all your leader node and controller node. But you just come to these pods, and whatever the application you have installed, and you have to select, there is a UID which will be coming in a top, which you have to select that, and after that you will be able to see what are the application deployed, and from the application name, and it will also show the which worker IP it's deployed, and also which pod in the Kubernetes it's deployed. For example, we have given some IP range, and whenever we deploy application in specific worker, it will choose in a runtime, it will choose some IP from that particular IP range. So that IP also we can see it from this particular page. Yeah, so that's it for the installation and configuration for our Runtime Fabric environment. So what we have done so far, initially we have registered from Anypine platform, and which was showing ready for activation. Then we went inside the VM, and we have copied the init file, we copied the generate config file. Using a generate config file, we just updated the file with our IP details and other activation data details and license detail, and then we executed the generated config, which generated many configs. Each IP generated one config. Then we took that command, cat command, and executed in the individual node, and then we changed the permission of the init file, and we have executed the init file, which helped to install the runtime fabric in all the environment. So that is what we have seen, and also we have just done a health check from our Anypine platform and also the Ops Center, just to see the install components are working properly or not. Then if you want, now we have installed it. So now I wanted to install an application from Anypine platform. How do I do it? So normally when you want to deploy application, we'll give a name, we'll choose a jar, and then we'll choose a cloud hub. So in this case, we have to choose a runtime fabric. Inside runtime fabric, it will show list of runtime environment which we have registered in Anypine platform. So for example, you have registered with a name called RTF production. So when you click this simple, it will show the runtime fabric, and after that you can select how many vCore you need, and then you can also choose the CPU limit, and then you can click deploy, so that it will deploy the application into your runtime fabric environment. So once you deploy the application, you can come and see from this Ops Center, and you will be able to see the application running in specific worker node with a specific part. So those kind of detail I can see it from here, and also from here I can see the logs of that particular application as well. So we can monitor the logs from this particular Ops Center as well. Hi, thank you for watching this video so far. If you like the video, please share it with your friends, and also subscribe to this Tech Lightning channel. Thank you. Bye bye.